This is being seen as nothing short of a major diplomatic achievement. Indian-flagged VLGC vessel Shivalik has arrived at the Mundra Port, bringing much-needed relief for India's energy supply. The development comes at a time when global energy routes are under strain, with tensions and conflict in West Asia disrupting shipping through the strategic Strait of Hormuz. The vessel Shivalik is carrying nearly 40,000 metric tons of LPG, enough to fill around 28 lakh domestic cooking gas cylinders across the country at a time when India has been facing LPG supply pressures amid the war. The arrival of this cargo is being seen as a significant boost to the country's energy security. On your screen, ladies and gentlemen, you have Shivalik that's reached Mundra Port for what it is being seen as a huge diplomatic win for India. Remember, this is coming at a time when India has been facing LPG supply pressures amid the war. Officials say the two Indian-flagged LPG vessels have now been granted safe transit through the Strait of Hormuz by Iranian authorities, underlining the importance of diplomatic engagement during a volatile regional crisis. Early on March 13th, the Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways also issued an update on the maritime situation and the steps being taken to ensure the safety of Indian vessels operating in the Gulf. According to the ministry, 24 Indian-flagged vessels with 668 Indian seafarers are currently operating in the Persian Gulf as authorities closely monitor the evolving security situation. The safe arrival of Shivalik, therefore, is not just another cargo delivery. It is a reminder of how crucial maritime routes and diplomacy are in keeping India's everyday energy lifelines running. And remember, all of this comes even as you have the External Affairs Minister of India, Jaishankar, very actively pursuing back-channel talks with Iran and several other stakeholders. You have the Iranian envoy to India call India a friend. And remember, just before Shivalik and another vessel did cross Hormuz, you have this news coming in from Iran that Indian vessels will be allowed. A huge strategic diplomatic win for India. The safe arrival of Shivalik, therefore, is not just another cargo delivery. It is a reminder of how crucial maritime routes and diplomacy are in keeping with India's everyday energy lifelines running. And I'm being joined by Commodore Anil Jay Singh, who's a Vice President for Indian Maritime Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us again. Just put this in perspective for us, sir. So you have the External Affairs Minister who very clearly said that we are in talks with all stakeholders. We are in talks with Iran. You have Iran calling India a friend in these times of crisis. What does Shivalik reaching the Mundra Port really mean at this point for India?
I think from a diplomatic perspective, it is certainly a very positive development. We have been facing difficulties with LPG, and had this kind of blockade continues for a few more days, the problem is going to get far worse than it is at the moment. Even though we've been assured that there is no reason to panic at this point of time, but the fact is, if this continues for a long time, then eventually the shortage will be felt, and it will be a cascading effect. So it won't get over fast. So I think whatever quantity of LPG we can get through the Straits of Hormuz is going to help the situation. As far as allowing Shivalik to come through the Straits of Hormuz, I think India and Iran have always had historically a very cordial relationship. And notwithstanding the churn of current geopolitics, which may force certain, ambiguity in our approach, I think overall the one-to-one correspondence and one-to-one conversations that India has been having with Iran at the apex level has helped in addressing this problem. Though, of course, Iran has been very careful to qualify it by saying this is not a blanket approval. We will deal with it on a case-by-case basis. So they've kept a little bit of leverage available with themselves, even though they've allowed the tanker to go through. And I think the smart thing that Iran can do right now is that countries which are not quite wanting to engage in this conflict, if Iran allows them to let their energy pass, then the chances of President Trump being able to effectively cobble together a coalition become that much slimmer. Countries will not want to get involved in a conflict if they feel that their own supplies are not threatened in any way. And, let this, because again, the more this conflict escalates, the more chances there are of oil supplies getting disrupted.
That's true.
So it's in everybody's interest to keep that to the barest minimum.
Yeah,
Particularly countries in Southeast Asia and East Asia, China, Japan, South Korea, Australia, who are very dependent on Gulf oil, and India also, along with other South Asian nations.
Yunus, I want
So
to
I
ask you a
think that
question. We're totally out of time, but just a minute more possibly to you, Commodore. It's not just about oil. Of course, oil is at the heart of it, but there's also a lot of other shipments, cargoes that really take the course of the Strait of Hormuz for that matter, whether it be medical emergency supplies, essential drugs for that matter, a lot of these things as well. So diplomacy really the way forward more than the military might, particularly for countries like India who are balancing and walking a very thin line.
I absolutely agree with you on that. This is the best. I mean, I think we've taken a very mature approach towards this whole thing. And in any case, it's not for us to get involved in this conflict in any way. We neither are a NATO ally, nor do we have any sort of axe to grind with Iran individually as a nation. So why should we get involved in something that is of somebody else's making? Yes, if you notice President Trump's language even now, despite the fact that he's being pushed into a corner in the Strait of Hormuz, is very aggressive. We
That's
take
true.
only 1%, the others take 90%, I demand a coalition. The kind of words, he still continues to assert himself very forcefully to kind of say that, I'm almost doing you a favor by asking you to become a part of this war.